वेलकम टू अवर यूट्यूब चैनल karostartup। पिछले वीडियो पे आपके इतने अच्छे रिस्पॉन्स की वजह से मैं उज्जवल पटेल आपके लिए एक और बहुत सारी लर्निंग से भरी एक मूवी लेकर आया हूं, जिसमें आपके ही आइडियाज आपको उनके बिजनेस रूल्स बताएंगे जो आपकी पर्सनल और प्रोफेशनल लाइफ को पूरी तरह बदल सकते हैं। तो चलिए जानते हैं उनके सक्सेस रूल्स।
When I started Microsoft, I didn't think of it as all that risky. I mean, I was so excited about what we were doing. It's true I could have gone bankrupt, but you know, I had a set of skills that were highly employable, and in fact, my parents were still willing to let me go back to Harvard and finish my education if I wanted to.
You've always got a job with me, Bill.
And the thing that was scary to me wasn't quitting and starting the company. It was when I started hiring my friends, and they expected to be paid. And then we had customers who went bankrupt, customers that I'd counted on to come through. And so then I got this incredibly conservative approach that I wanted to have enough money in the bank to pay a year's worth of payroll, even if we didn't get any payments coming in. And you know, I'm almost true to that the whole time. We have about 10 billion now, which is pretty much enough for the next year. Anyway, you know, if you're going to start a company, it takes so much energy that it better overcome your feeling of risk. I don't think that you necessarily, if you're going to start a company, should do it at the start of your career. I think there's a lot to be said for working for a company, learning how they do things. You know, if you're young, it's hard to go lease premises. They made that hard for me. You couldn't rent a car when you were under 25 at the time, so I was always taking taxis to go see customers. And the people would, people would say, well, we're going to go have a discussion in the bar. Well, I couldn't go to the bar. But that's fun, because I'll tell you, when people are first skeptical and they think, oh, this kid doesn't know anything, then when you show them you've really got a good product and you know something, they actually tend to go overboard and they think, whoa, they know a lot. Let's really do an incredible amount with these people. So our youth, at least in this country, was a huge asset for us once we reached a certain threshold. It's hard to hire older people because they'll be a little bit conservative about whether they should come and take the risk. And it took 3 or 4 years before we could go out into the normal sort of employment pool. But those problems that come with starting a firm, you better think of those as part of the pleasure, part of the challenge that is part of the excitement.
I want to thank Harvard for this honor. I'll be changing my job next year, and it will be nice to finally have a college degree on my resume. I applaud the graduates for taking a much more direct route to your degrees. For my part, I'm just happy that the Crimson called me Harvard's most successful dropout. I guess that makes me valedictorian of my own special class. I did the best of everyone who failed. But I also want to be recognized as the guy who got Steve Ballmer to drop out of business school. I'm a bad influence. That's why I was invited to speak at your graduation. If I'd spoken at your orientation, fewer of you might be here today.
I'm in meetings a lot. My calendar gets very full with those, and then at night, after the kids have gone to bed, I'm on email a great deal. I get messages during the day. That's my chance to give long responses. And then over the weekend, I send a lot of mail as well. I take 2 weeks a year to just go off and read and think, where I'm not interrupted by work or anything else. I'm just solidly trying to think about the future, and people get to send me things to read as part of that so-called Think Week. So it's a nice mix of things. About 25% of the time then I'm out traveling around, meeting with customers, Europe, Asia, and that sort of helps me think, okay, do we have the right priorities? What are people responding well to, and what would they like to see us do better?
Hello, I'm Bill Gates, Chairman of Microsoft. In this video, you're going to see the future, Windows. Microsoft first came up with the Windows concept back in 1983. And today, the leading software users have switched into the Windows environment. It's really incredible how quickly our powerful applications like Word and Excel and PowerPoint have been adopted. It's not just Microsoft applications. Even companies like WordPerfect and Lotus have now come out with Windows applications. And every week we see new innovative work. It's really attracting all the innovation in the industry. We predicted this a long time ago, and now it's the future.
The key point there is you've got to enjoy what you do every day. And for me, that's working with very smart people. It's working on new problems. You know, every time we think, hey, we've had a little bit of success, we're pretty careful not to dwell on it too much because the bar gets raised.
I love bridge. Bridge helps you think. It's a game you can play your entire life and keep getting better and better. I think anybody who's good at bridge is going to be great at a lot of things. So I really encourage people to get involved, and I want to thank the people who've put things together for juniors. They'll be thanking you the rest of their life because bridge is such a great sport.
I talked to my dad, I talked to Warren, I talked to my wife Melinda. So I have enough people that know me and actually know where my judgment isn't its strongest, where I might get overexcited about something or forget to think about something. And so they're good at correcting, particularly Melinda, good at correcting whatever those blind spots are. And I think it's good to encourage your friends and advisors to really give them that license. I can go to a party and forget to say hello to various people or something. That's a very minor example of my blind spots.
Not to the hostess.
Well, Melinda would help me do that.
Yeah, she would,
So, a small number of people that you can turn to on certain key things is a great asset.
My best business decisions really have to do with picking people. Deciding to go into partnership with Paul Allen is probably at the top of the list. And then subsequently hiring a friend, Steve Ballmer. And having somebody who you totally trust, who's totally committed, who shares your vision and yet has a little bit different set of skills, and also acts as a check on you. Some of the ideas you come up with, you run by them because they're going to say, hey, wait a minute. Have you thought about this and that? And just, the benefit of sparking off of somebody who's got that kind of brilliance, it's not only made it fun, but it's really led to a lot of success. So picking a partner is crucial.
I had one habit that I developed when I was at college that was actually a very bad habit, which was I like to show people that I didn't do any work. And that I didn't go to classes and I didn't care. And then at the very last minute, like 2 days before the test, I'd get serious about it. And people thought that was funny. That was my positioning, the guy who did nothing until the last minute. Then when I went into business, that was a really bad habit. And it took me a couple of years to get over that. Nobody praised me because I would do things at the last minute, and I tried to reverse to students I didn't think that highly of, who were always organized and had things done on time. I'm still working on it, but procrastination is not a good habit.
Bill can change clothes in the car.
So I'm going to challenge Bill Gates, my partner at Facebook, Sheryl Sandberg, and Netflix's founder and CEO, Reed Hastings.
I'm glad to give to ALS. It's a great cause, but I want to accept this challenge. I want to do it better than it's been done. Been working on this, got this design. There we go. Yeah. It's going to be great. I'm here to join the people bringing attention to Lou Gehrig's disease by taking the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge.
I'm going to challenge 3 more people. Elon Musk, Ryan Seacrest, and Chris Anderson of TED. Consider yourself challenged. You have 24 hours. Good luck.
People, let me tell you about my best friend. He's a warm-hearted person who loved me till the end. Now, people, let me tell you about my best friend. He's a one-boy, cuddly toy, my up, my down, my pride and joy. People, let me tell you about him. It's so much fun, whether we're walking man to man or whether we're walking sun to sun, 'cause he's my best friend. Yeah, he's my best friend. La la, ba da 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 ya, ba da da ya, ba da ya.
Is it true that you can leap over a chair from a standing position?
It depends on the size of the chair. I'll cheat a little bit.
Yes!
Oh, behave.
You are unusually fearless and willing to go in the face of other people telling you something is crazy. And I know a lot of pretty crazy people, you still stand out. Where does that come from, or how do you think about making a decision when everyone tells you this is a crazy idea? Or where do you get the internal strength to do that?
Well, first of all, I'd say I actually think I feel fear quite strongly. So it's not as though I just have the absence of fear. I feel it quite strongly. But there are just times when something is important enough, you believe in it enough, that you do it in spite of the fear.
So speaking of important things,
like people shouldn't think people shouldn't think, well, I feel fear about this and therefore I shouldn't do it. It's normal to feel fear. Like there'd have to be something mentally wrong if you didn't feel fear.
So you just feel it and let the importance of it drive you to do it anyway?
Yeah, actually something that can be helpful is fatalism to some degree. If you just accept the probabilities, then that diminishes fear. When starting SpaceX, I thought the odds of success were less than 10%. And I just accepted that actually probably I would just lose everything. But that maybe would make some progress. If we could just move the ball forward, even if we died, maybe some other company could pick up the baton and keep moving it forward, so that we still do some good. Yeah, same with Tesla. I thought the odds of a car company succeeding were extremely low.
I would definitely advise people who are starting a company to expect a long period of quite high difficulty.
Yeah.
But I mean, as long as people stay super focused on creating the absolute best product or service that really delights their end customer, if they stay focused on that, then if you get it such that your customers want you to succeed, then you probably will.
All right, you have to focus on the customer and delivering for them.
Yeah, make sure if your customers love you, your odds of success are dramatically higher.
Yeah.
One does have to be focused on the short term and money coming in when creating a company, because otherwise the company will die. So I think that a lot of times people think like creating a company is going to be fun. I would say it's not. It's really not that fun. I mean, there are periods of fun, and there are periods of where it's just awful. And particularly if you're the CEO of the company, you actually have a distillation of all the worst problems in the company. There's no point in spending your time on things that are going right. So you only spend your time on things that are going wrong. And there are things that are going wrong that other people can't take care of. So you have like the worst. You have a filter for the crappiest problem in the company, the most pernicious and painful problem. So I wouldn't say I think you have to feel quite compelled to do it, and have a fairly high pain threshold. And there's a friend of mine who says like starting a company is like staring into the abyss and eating glass. And there's some truth to that. The staring into the abyss part is that you're going to be constantly facing the extermination of the company. Because most startups fail. It's like 90%, arguably 99% of startups fail. So that's the staring into the abyss part. You're constantly saying, okay, if I don't get this right, the company will die. It should be quite stressful. And then the eating glass part is you've got to do the problems. You've got to work on the problems that the company needs you to work on, not the problems you want to work on. And so that's you end up working on problems that you'd really wish you weren't working on. And so that's the eating glass part. And that goes on for a long time.
So how do you keep your focus on the big picture when you're constantly faced with, we could be out of business in a month?
Well, it's just a very small percentage of mental energy is on the big picture. Like you know where you're generally heading for, and the actual path is going to be some sort of zigzaggy thing in that direction. You try not to deviate too far from the path that you want to be on, but you're going to have to do that to some degree. But I don't want to diminish the. I mean, I think the profit motive is a good one if the rules of an industry are properly set up. So there's nothing fundamentally wrong with profit. In fact, profit just means that people are paying you more for whatever you're doing than you're spending to create it. That's a good thing. and if that's not the case, then you'll be out of business, and rightfully so. Because you're not adding enough value.
First of all, I really need to give some thought to like how can I provide advice that would be most helpful, and I'm not sure I've given enough thought to that to give you the best possible answer. But I think certainly being focused on something that you're confident will have high value to someone else, and just being really rigorous in making that assessment, because people tend to a natural human tendency is wishful thinking. So a challenge for entrepreneurs is to say, well, what's the difference between really believing in your ideals and sticking to them versus pursuing some unrealistic dream that doesn't actually have merit? And that is a really difficult thing to tell. Can you tell the difference between those two things?
Right.
You know? So you need to be sort of very rigorous in your self-analysis. I think certainly extremely tenacious, and then just work like hell. I mean, you just have to put in, 80 to 100 hour weeks every week.
Gosh,
and then
a lot of work.
All those things improve the odds of success.
Okay.
I mean, if other people are putting in 40-hour work weeks and you're putting in 100-hour work weeks, then even if you're doing the same thing, you know that in 1 year you will achieve what they achieve. You will achieve in 4 months what it takes them a year to achieve.
So failures are not the most terrible things. Well, you have to learn from it and react to it.
Yeah, exactly. When you're building something new, there's going to be mistakes.
Yeah.
And it's important to recognize those mistakes, acknowledge them, and take corrective action.
Oh.
And the success of a company is very much more about how quick are you to fix the mistakes, not will you make mistakes.
Or admit mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you see the difference between a startup that is successful and one that is not, and it's because the successful one, they both made mistakes, but the successful one recognized the mistakes, fixed them very quickly, and the unsuccessful one tries to deny that the mistakes exist.
Extremely smart people are sometimes quite arrogant because they believe in what they believe in, right? And so when they face criticism, it's less likely to admit, they can make mistakes. Was that in your case?
I learned it when I was studying physics. In physics, you're taught to always question yourself. You're taught to always assume that you're wrong, not assume that you're right, and you have to prove yourself not wrong. And so I think that physics framework is really where I learned it. And
it's very effective for learning counterintuitive things that aren't obvious.
So you are very famous in saying that failure is actually an option, and if you're not failing, that means you're not innovative enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I like failure. I mean, who likes failure is terrible. But if you only do things that are certain to succeed, then you're only going to be doing very obvious things.
Question that has been discussed over the past couple of days. Should we be considering one-way only trips to Mars? What's the best approach to colonize the planet? Is it, well, what's your view? Is that socially acceptable? Do you think people will sign up to do it?
Well, I think there's plenty of people who sign up for a one-way trip to Mars. But
maybe if we could have a show of hands, who would consider such an option? I see some, not many, but perhaps enough for a couple of missions.
So certainly be enough. I mean, I think it's sort of like, is it a one-way mission and then you die? Or is it a one-way mission and you get resupplied? That's a big difference.
Very good. Wait for the second option.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I think it ends up being a moot point because you want to bring the spaceship back. Like, these spaceships are expensive, okay? They're hard to build. You can't just leave them there. So whether or not people want to come back or not is kind of, like, they can jump on if they want, but they need the spaceship back.
Thank you.
I mean, it's kind of weird. Like, there's like a huge collection of spaceships on Mars over time. And we're like, it's like, maybe we should send them back. I mean, of course we should send them back.
Now, with Tesla, your goal has been to make a better car. And you've done that with an electric vehicle that people covet, that has quite a cult following, that's upgradable. But you also want to achieve, and your turn of phrase is very nice, or try to achieve this platonic ideal of a car. Right, to reach perfection. So what does the perfect car look like?
Well, I mean, I do use that phrase with our engineering design team, that aspirationally we're in pursuit of the platonic ideal of the perfect car. Yeah. Who knows what that looks like actually, but you want to try to make every element of the car as flawless as possible. And there will always be, some degree of imperfection, but try to minimize that and create a car that is just delightful in every way. And I think if you do that, then the rest kind of takes care of itself.
Being innovative can be very exciting in life, but doing business sometimes requires, persistence, and sometimes could be very boring. Do you have the same fun from innovation as from business, running a business?
Well, I mean,
or would you rather to be just an innovator, engineer, instead of a business owner or runner?
I mean, I'd love to just do innovation and just do engineering. But you raise a good point because, a lot of life in general, in any job, there's like, you have to do your chores. There's...
Because nobody else can do that for you, right?
Well, I think to be successful at almost anything, you have to do the tough stuff and as well as the enjoyable stuff. You have to do the boring stuff as well as the non-boring stuff. And if you don't do your chores, then bad things will happen. But if they don't do the things that they don't like to do, then the company will be in trouble. Yeah. Like you have to, you basically, like it's more fun to cook the meal than to clean the dishes. Okay, but you need to clean the dishes.
You need to do both.
Yes, you need to do both, exactly.
2001, was touring a friend of mine, and he asked me what I was going to do after PayPal, and I thought, well, I was wondering, like, I'd like to get involved in space, but I just didn't think there was anything I could do as an individual. But I was curious as to when NASA would be sending a team to Mars, because that was always going to be the thing to do after the moon. I figured that there'd be some plan, and I'd just go to the website and I could read the schedule.
Then Mars occurs.
Oh yeah, it's like, okay, 2017, good, okay. But actually there wasn't anything on the website, and or at least I thought, like, can I not find it? Like, what's going on here? And is it secret? I don't know. But it turned out that that NASA had done a study on what it would cost to do a manned Mars mission, and this was under Bush the First, and in his first, he asked for a 90-day study shortly after taking office, and NASA came back with a $500 billion price tag.
And he said, okay, maybe not.
Billion with a B.
That's when $500 billion was serious money for the government. So then that got totally shelved, and it was like you were not allowed to talk about any kind of crewed mission to Mars at NASA. Anyway, but I thought, well, if I can do something that would galvanize public interest, and then that public interest would translate to additional appropriations for NASA and increase their budget, then maybe they could do it. So actually, what I sort of thinking I would do is send a small greenhouse to the surface of Mars with seeds in dehydrated gel, and then upon landing, hydrate the gel, grow the plants, and the public tends to respond to precedents and superlatives. So this would be the furthest that life's ever traveled, the first life on Mars. I tried to figure out how to do this with the proceeds that I had from PayPal, and I was able to figure out how to get the cost of the spacecraft down, and the communications, and the little greenhouse and everything. But the one thing I couldn't compress was the cost to launch, because there are only a few options, and the US options were way too expensive. And so I ended up going to Russia 3 times to try to buy the biggest ICBM in the Russian nuclear fleet.
That's where I'd start. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go big
that
or
was,
go home. Right? Yeah.
I mean, okay. You know, there was some strange trips, that's for sure. But you know, there's like virtually, like you can buy any. It's a very capitalist society in some ways. So I actually did negotiate a deal to buy 2 of the ICBMs minus the nukes. But I came to the conclusion after that 3rd trip that it wouldn't really matter. Like I actually came to the conclusion that my initial premise was wrong, because I actually think there's a tremendous amount of will in the American population, particularly to explore. The United States, you know, maybe more than any other country, is a distillation of the human spirit of exploration, and it's really fundamental to psyche. So, if people think there's a way, I think it would actually get a lot of support. But it can't be just banging your head against the wall. I've got to believe that this can be done without breaking the federal budget. So that's when I said, okay, well, is there some way to affect the cost of space transport? And so I got together with a group of people over a series of Saturdays just to try to understand, is there something fundamentally super expensive about rockets, or can the cost be substantially improved? We had a bunch of those kind of brainstorming sessions, and I couldn't see any fundamental obstacle to improving the cost of rockets. So that's when I started SpaceX.
It's like, I'll just build them myself.
Yeah.
And then.
But like I said, at that point, I would say the probability of success was definitely less than 50%. I thought it would most likely not succeed, but it was worth a try.
You're the CEO of SpaceX, and you've said that your ultimate goal is to get humankind to Mars. I've heard your response to the question, but these guys need to hear it. Why is Mars important? Why does Mars matter?
Sure. Well, I think it's really a fundamental decision we need to make as a civilization. You know, what kind of future do we want? Do we want a future where we are forever confined to one planet until some eventual extinction event, however far in the future that might occur? Or do we want to become a multi-planet species and then ultimately be out there among the stars and be among many planets, many star systems? And I think the latter is a far more exciting and inspiring future than the former. And Mars is the next natural step. In fact, it's the only planet we really have a shot at establishing a self-sustaining city on. And I think once we do establish such a city, there will be a strong forcing function for the improvement of spaceflight technology that will then enable us to establish colonies elsewhere in the solar system and ultimately extend beyond our solar system. And so there's the defensive reason of protecting the future of humanity, ensuring that the light of consciousness is not extinguished should some calamity befall Earth. But also, and that's the defensive reason. But personally, I find what gets me more excited is the fact that this would be an incredible adventure. I mean, it'd be like the greatest adventure ever. And it would be exciting and inspiring. And there need to be things that excite and inspire people.
Yeah.
have to be, reasons why you get up in the morning. It can't just be solving problems. It's got to be, something great's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, we talked about this at length yesterday. It's not an exit strategy or a backup plan for humankind when Earth fails.
Right.
It's also to inspire people on Earth, right, and to transcend and to go beyond our mental limits of what we think we can achieve.
Right. I mean, you think of sort of how incredible the Apollo program was, and just I mean, if you ask anyone and say, name some of humanity's greatest achievements of the 20th century, the Apollo program, landing on the moon, would in many, if not most places, be number one.
First of all, focus on it, right? I mean, I think you basically get what you spend your time doing, right? I mean, I want the company to build 3 products this year. I mean, we're going to work on a few others because people are interested in them, but those are the 3 things that I'm spending my product time on, right? You get what you put into it. If you spend a third of your time trying to make the people around you better through getting better people, mentoring, getting them to be better, getting the best people in your organization into more impactful roles, then I think over time that just accrues and you get a better organization. We've had this tradition for, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 years at the company, where every week we have a Q&A where our employees can come and ask me any question that they want about what's going on and what the direction of the company is, or questions or things that they read about in the press, or that their friends who use the product, what they're asking them. And it's been this really important tradition for us, both because we really believe in openness and communication, and that's kind of what Facebook is all about. But it's also really important for me and for running the company to be able to get feedback, right? And to be able to learn what's on people's minds, what our employees and folks who are part of our team are thinking about, and just kind of a lot of the time there are good questions that people ask that change the way that we think about what we're building and what we're here to do in the world. And that often make us go think and reevaluate how we should be approaching different problems. So many things go wrong when you're starting a company, and often I think people ask, what mistakes should you avoid making? And my answer to that question is don't even bother trying to avoid mistakes, because you're going to make tons of mistakes, right? And the important thing is actually learning quickly from whatever mistakes you make and not giving up. Right, and I mean, there are things every single year of Facebook's existence that could have killed us or made it so that it just seemed like moving forward and making a lot of progress just seemed intractable, but you just kind of bounce back and you learn, and nothing is impossible. You just have to kind of keep running through the walls. I don't hire people who I wouldn't work for myself. I think that's a really good heuristic, because everyone knows this, there's this saying A players hire A players and B players hire C players, which is good people hire good people. And I don't think that's that informative, right? Because I mean, what are you going to say? To someone in your organization,
hire better
you're a B
people.
player, you don't get to hire people. No. I mean, and I think a lot of the time the problem is you don't actually know. I mean, sometimes you're trying to figure out how good someone is. If you didn't think they were good, you wouldn't have hired them. But the heuristic of only hiring people who you would work for tends to be pretty good, I think, because then it's then that right? It's I would not work for this person, then okay, I'm not going to stretch just because I need to fill a role today. When you're starting something, it's just kind of hard. You need to be pretty headstrong about it, right? And there are going to be all these challenges that come up, and I think the main thing that you need to do is just not give up, right? And kind of know what you want to do. And the best entrepreneurs who I've met don't really start companies because their goal is to build a company. They do it because they want to make a change in the world and help people. And I think if you kind of stay true to that, and if you just focus on kind of powering through no matter what the challenges are that will inevitably come up in your path, then you'll find that there are lots of tools that are available and a lot of people who will help you build what you're building. One definition that I have for a good team is a group of people that makes better decisions as a whole than would individually make as a sum of the parts. And I think most smart people like learning, right? And I mean, that's one of the thrills of starting a company, right? Is the learning curve can be so steep. And if you can set up a team dynamic where you're constantly learning from the people around you, then I mean, what's better, right? It's these are the people I wake up every morning and I want to go learn from and work from.
Is that one of your heuristics for hiring people too, to hire people that you learn from?
Yeah, And when building a team, you want to think about the dynamics, so that way you can maintain this property that the team makes better decisions as a group than any individual would. I always kind of I get a little upset whenever any media attention focuses on me personally and me leading Facebook, much less a movie.
It's been kind of a bad year, hasn't it?
It turned out okay.
Time, Academy.
It turned out good. The time thing was awesome. That was really flattering. But I think that it's one of these things that the media systematically gets wrong, is that this idea that it's a person, right? It's never a person, right? It's always a team. And the most important thing if you are an entrepreneur trying to build something is you need to build a really good team. And that's what I spend a lot of my time on, right? I mean, I spend probably at least 3 hours a day with our core team, right, at doing things. I spend probably 25% of my time recruiting, finding good people, both outside the company and inside the company, to put in more impactful roles. So there's this inherent conflict in the system, though, which is, are we trying to optimize newsfeed to give each person, all of you guys, the best experience when you're reading? Or are we trying to help businesses just reach as many people as possible? And in every decision that we make, we optimize for the first, for making it so that for the people who we serve, who use Facebook and who are reading newsfeed, get the very best experience that they can. And that means that if a business is sharing content that's going to be useful for them, then we'll show that. But that means that if the business is sharing content that isn't going to be useful for them, we may not show that, because it's probably more important that they learn about their friend who had a baby and their baby is healthy. So that's an important guiding principle for how we think about this stuff. And as the products continue to develop, there's just going to be more people sharing more things. And we're going to continue to try to do our best at showing the best things that we can, understanding that there's no way that a person will ever take the time to go through every one of the 1,500 things that are shared with them every single day. But that's kind of how I think about organic reach. And there are a lot of pages that are doing quite successfully, and their organic reach is growing quite a bit because they're delivering content to people that they really want. So if you're a business owner and you're thinking about how to use your free page on Facebook, I would just focus on trying to publish really good content that's going to be compelling to your customers and the people who are following you. I spent a bunch of time analyzing and reflecting on why it was that we were even able to do it, because all reasons suggest that we shouldn't have been able to do it, right? Because all these other companies had way more engineering power and servers and time and money and all this stuff. And I actually think that this is a pretty instructive thing for anything that you want to go do, because this is the same property is going to be true for anything that you guys start, is that someone else is going to have more resources and be able to do it. The reason why I think we actually ended up being the ones doing it is because we just cared way more about it than everyone else, right? So there were always projects at some of these other companies that were these hobbies, but we always thought that it was this really important thing and really just felt in our gut and our heart that we wanted to do it. And early on there were always these skeptics saying that, oh, this can't be a business. We didn't actually care that much about it being a business early on, but a lot of the reason why bigger companies didn't invest in it was because it wasn't clear that there was a model that would work for it.
It seemed like a bad idea.
Yeah, and I actually think that that's true for a lot of the best ideas, where it is that it's not that someone else can't do it, they actually can, and the odds are stacked against you, but I think often that belief in the fact that you just care so much about what you're doing is the only thing that kind of drives you to do it. And, to be honest, that kind of drives me to this day. I mean, one of the big emphasis points for the company right now is internet.org. And, for a while we had this rallying cry of, can we connect 1 billion people? And when we started talking about that, we thought that was crazy, right? It was way bigger than any service in the world that had been built, and it was 10 digits long, right? It's like it felt crazy. We'd never get to that. But then the thing is, as we started to actually get closer to that, we took a step back and we're like, all right, well, our mission isn't actually to get 1 in 7 people in the world to be connected. It's we want to connect everyone. So it's a big issue that only around 1/3 of the people in the world have access to the internet, and that's something that we think that we can do something about. And similar to early Facebook, there's no business model around this. I mean, all the people who have all the money in the world, I mean, it's not necessarily a fair thing, are already the people who are on Facebook, right? It's in the first, 1/7 of the world. But we just believe really strongly. It's like, this is what we are here to do. This is what our company cares about, I care about it, the team cares about it, our culture cares about it, so we're just gonna keep pushing on it. And I actually think a lot of the reason why great stuff gets built is because it's kind of irrational at the time, but so it kind of selects for the people who care the most about it doing it. But the students around me were really important as well, right? And both in high school and in college, I mean, the people who started Facebook with me and a lot of the people who are still with me running the company today are people who I met when I was at Harvard, and some of them were my TFs at Harvard, right? And you know, when the professors were off writing papers, these were the people who actually taught me, and then we hung out and we had like social bonds and academic bonds, and I wouldn't understate the importance of that. And I mean, it's very tied into my whole philosophy and the product that I spend my life building, Facebook, because we just believe that social bonds are critical. And one way that I think about the value that Facebook is filling in the world is that, you know, you go through school, and at least when I did, people just focused on, you know, academics, like achievement, different areas. And one of the things that no one really ever taught me was like, having friends is really valuable. Now, not that I didn't have friends, but like, although, you know, the movie,
yes.
Right, make it seem that but
that first girlfriend.
But for sure, I don't think anyone is like, it's not like, okay, third grade, we're gonna teach you that like hanging out with people is a very important development, right? And I don't know, I actually think that is. And I think that's part of the reason why sometimes people view Facebook as a waste of time, but I actually think it's this extremely socially valuable utility. And I know that I wouldn't be where I am today without that aspect of my life being as developed as the academic part.
I think the important thing to think about business is that business isn't really business. Business is creating something that you believe in. I mean, the most successful entrepreneurs are people like, you know, Larry Page and Sergey, who had an idea in their garage and felt they could create something called Google. In all of these examples, they are filling a niche in different areas and just making living for most people a lot more pleasant than it was before. I think it's a mistake when people think of business like they're ringing up a till in a shop. For most entrepreneurs, business is very creative and a great adventure.
I think if you believe in what you're doing, many people will tell you, why you're mistaken, why it'll never work. But if you really believe passionately in what you're doing, just keep going, keep pushing on, and until you either succeed or at least you realize that it's just not going to happen. And then if you don't succeed, pick yourself up and try again. And ultimately, if you're that determined, you will succeed in life. And if you don't, you'll have a hell of a lot of fun trying.
I started literally in a really small way, like handing out leaflets outside concert halls and selling music, getting the money in from the leaflets and then sending the music out, and just one thing led on to another. So you don't have to dream big straight away. Just try to get the nuts and bolts of your business going.
Whatever job you're doing in life, if you're a switchboard operator, if you're cleaning the floors of a building, if you're collecting eggs for an incubator, or whatever it is, if you're positive about the job you're doing, you're going to be a much happier person, and the people around you are going to be a lot happier, and it's likely that you won't forever be a cleaning lady, or because you're smiling, because you're happy, people will promote you, and you'll go on and do great things in life. So I think a positive attitude is essential in life, whatever your position.
Looks like you always go out of your comfort zone, right? Coming onto an island that was completely deserted, no fresh water, you didn't even have the money to buy it, and now you're sleeping on a tent on the beach trying to figure out how to get fresh water here. You do that often. You did it with the airline.
I was just somebody that experienced the bad experience of traveling on airlines. I was actually trying to get to the BVI, the British Virgin Islands, one day from Puerto Rico, and
this same lovely lady was waiting for me, and I'd been away for 3 weeks, and American Airlines bumped the flight. And so I went to the back of the airport, I hired a plane, I hired a blackboard, I wrote Virgin Airlines one way, $29 to the BVI, went around all the people who'd been bumped, and I filled my first plane. And that got me thinking, that airlines do bump people. They don't care about you or me, particularly in the air. And so so I then rang up Boeing and said, do you have any second-hand 747s?
No kidding. I mean, it was literally that. You just sat in the airport and said, I'm starting an airline right now because I'm frustrated.
Exactly. And I think most of the best entrepreneurial ideas come out of frustration. I think, if you're frustrated about something, the best way of sorting it out is get out and do it, and you've got yourself a business. Life is short, life should be fun, and it should be fun, not, it should be, if the chairman of the company is having fun, if you go to a party and, if I let my hair down and I'm the first to be thrown in the swimming pool and I'm not just standing in the corner of the room sipping sherry or something, then everybody will have a laugh and everybody will have fun. If you're chairman of the company, be the first to dance on the table. Just get everybody else up dancing on the table and make sure the party's a laugh. So, so play hard and work hard, and follow certain principles in life. Love people. Make sure you make a positive difference in this world while you're on it. Over the next 5 years, we plan to take on the banking community. We plan to take on the cosmetics industry. We plan to take on the clothing industry, and telecommunications, and one or two other industries, and see whether we can give them a run for their money and do it slightly differently than it's been done before.
Why do you think you can do it?
Mainly because I think we've got a fantastic team of people. We attract good people.
And their skills are translatable to whatever the industry is. It's creativity, it's risk orientation, it's what?
I think if you can run one business well, you can run any business. And if you know that what matters in business is a good team of people, well-motivated team of people, incentivized well, given a lot of freedom to go out and prove themselves, you can pretty well achieve anything. The key to, I think, being a good business leader is how good you are with people. I think if you can genuinely care about people, and not just your fellow directors, but the cleaning lady, the switchboard operator, everybody throughout the company. If you're a good, if you praise and don't criticize, people will flourish. So I think it's really your people skills that will set you apart, and I don't think that can be overemphasized. I think you just got to, if I'm on a Virgin plane, I will make sure that I always have a notebook in my back pocket. Make sure I get out and talk to all the staff. If they've got issues, make sure I don't just, hear the issue and not write it down. Make sure those issues get written down. Talk to the passengers. If they've got issues, make sure those issues get written down. I honestly just don't think about mistakes, but let me see if I can try. I mean, I just like to, if I make a mistake, I put it behind me and I just move forward. But, yes, I mean, there have been, musical bands that I've missed trying to sign, like Dire Straits. There have been companies that have fallen flat on their face, like Virgin Cola. That's just part of being an entrepreneur. You're going to have these things happening all the time. So I don't really see them as mistakes. They're just, if you're an entrepreneur, that some things are not going to go right, some things are going to go right.
Tea, coffee or me?
Ladies and gentlemen, I produce you AirAsia's newest crew, Sir Richard Branson. You can't look at me. They're gonna teach me everything to do. It's exit is that way. What do you think about the legs? Come on, I mean they're not bad, are they? I mean really. Oh, Tony. Sorry, you can't pick me up, can you? I mean, I'm always picking girls up. No. Get him out of there. Let's get to say hello. I'm not meant to. I just want to say thank you very much for flying with us today. It's been delightful working with all the cabin crew. And just want to say thank you very much for flying Air Asia X, and we hope to see you back again soon. I don't think I'm going to be allowed to come back on the plane again, but it's been great fun. Thanks very much for being with us. Thanks for raising lots and lots and lots of money for Starlight. And yeah, thanks a lot. See you soon. Cheers. Please give a warm Malaysian welcome to our new flight crew, Sir Richard Branson. We won't be hiring him. Since I own the company, Richard will not be hired. In fact, right now, I'm firing him.
It's great. We raised lots of money for the Starlight Foundation. We had a wonderful flight, and while I'm here, I'd just like to congratulate Tony and all the wonderful team at Air Asia and Air Asia X for the incredible job they've done. They've transformed traveling out of Malaysia and around Asia, and they deserve all the credit for it. And I'd always wanted to be an air hostess, but it looks like I'm just gonna have to get back to normality. But anyway, thank you very much for coming out. Cheers.
वीडियो पसंद आया तो वीडियो को लाइक करना और हमारी चैनल करो स्टार्टअप को सब्सक्राइब करके बेल बटन को क्लिक कर लेना, जिससे अगले जितने भी वीडियोस आए तब आपको नोटिफिकेशन मिल जाए।